All right, welcome to the Bellcut Podcast, episode 16. I'm your host, Jacob Trainer. It's been a little bit with the warm weather and stuff. I've been doing a lot of stuff outside, so I've been keeping busy. Haven't really had time to talk about a whole lot. But yeah, recently I bought a new bow, so I'm going to be going over all the details of it in this one, giving my thoughts, opinions, telling you the specs of everything I'm using, and if you're looking for a bow or just curious about stuff on the market and whatnot, hopefully this will help you out with that. So yeah, I ended up going with a Hoyt Ventum 33. It's kind of backstory on why I decided to go with that bow. The only other bow I've had is a Hoyt. I got my dad, when he switched over to crossbow, I got his hand-me-down Hoyt AlphaMax 32, and shot that for 2 years, and it was a good bow and all. It was just worn out. Had a lot of shots fired through it. Pretty sure the strings and the cables were stretched, like sights worn out. I ended up tearing the D loop off shooting so much this year. Like, it was just, the rest was squeaking, having a hard time collapsing. Like, it was just time to get something new instead of investing the money into that thing. So that I had some history with Hoyt already, but I'm not really a big brand guy, I guess, other than like Chevy trucks. Like, that's kind of my one thing. Otherwise, I'm pretty open to using anything. So I watched a lot of YouTube reviews since the bow had already been out for a while. I believe about 10 months or so, maybe, is when they released it. It was like the end of, or maybe in the middle of bow season last year. I was mostly looking, at first I thought I wanted a prime, but then I heard some people kind of talking about some of the issues with tuning on it. Just, you had to be, like, you really had to know what you were doing with it. And like I said, I've only been in archery like 2 years, so or at least bow hunting for about 2 years. So I wasn't real comfortable with that, basically being a newbie. So I kind of started steering away from that, and then I started looking into the Mathews, what is it, V3X, I believe it's called. That looks like a really good bow too. A couple of the things with it, probably the biggest one was like the draw cycle is kind of had a little bit of a hitch in it. I could tell from watching other people pull it back, and letting it down looked extremely hard. And so for me, if I'm cold in a tree stand, whitetail hunting or whatever, I got to be able to let it down pretty easy, especially pulling back the weight that I normally do. And my history of shoulder injuries and arm injuries and all that stuff, that's just not a risk I'm really willing to take. So that kind of steered me away from that. But otherwise, if watch that draw cycle or go to your bow shop and pull one back, if that's something that works for you, it's an incredible bow too. And I've seen a lot of the people I watch on YouTube and stuff just really making that thing perform. So also a great bow. Just wasn't really what I was really looking for. The main reason I would say why I ended up going with the Hoyt is just because availability. So there's a guy that sells prime locally, which is why I was originally considering that. And then there's a shop that they pretty much sell everything, but they're primarily a Mathews shop. And then the one I found up at the farm was Lucas Archery, and all he carries is Hoyt. So, the other part of my thought process was, if something, I've had issues before. Actually, last year, the day before the season, I had an issue with my peep, and luckily I was able to go to the Mathews shop, is Mike's Archery. Luckily I was able to go to them, and they got me squared away, and I was able to get it resighted and all that right before season. But if I'm up at the farm, during hunting season, I would much rather go to a Hoyt shop if that's the bow I'm shooting. So yeah, since that was the shop that was up there. I figured it just made sense to look into what he had, and most of the people I'm following and watching on YouTube and stuff like that, they're pretty much all shooting Hoyts anyways. There's only a couple guys shooting other brands. So I got to watch a lot of different reviews, and then people out in the field applying it on hunts and all that good stuff. So yeah, the other big issue, I got my notes here and I almost missed it, was me being left-handed. So most guys, right-handed guys, jump around to every shop and get to pull one back and get to shoot all different types of bows and see what feels best in their hand, and what they like, what they dislike about each one. Me being left-handed, pretty much no one had what I was looking for, especially me being a long draw length. A couple guys had some Matthews and stuff like that, but they either weren't my draw length or the poundage I was wanting to shoot. Like, they just, I don't know, lack of availability in left-handed, which is pretty common in all things usually. I'm pretty used to dealing with that when it comes to buying left-handed stuff. So yeah, that was the thing for me, basically off the reviews, watching other people use it, and then just availability, that why I ended up going with the brand that I did. There are pretty much all the bows on the market today are good bows, and they're going to kill whatever you're trying to hunt. It really just comes down to what's going to feel best to you. And for me, like I said, I kind of had to go off the visual of other people pulling it back, but yeah, I kind of feel like I got lucky with it, I guess. That's kind of one of the things I was worried about, ordering it and not ending up liking it. But yeah, I'll just go over some of the specs on it real quick, kind of talk about that. So got it pulled up on the computer here. So the Ventum's Hoyt's aluminum model. They've also got their I think they're on the RX7 now, which is their carbon line. That comes at quite a bit higher price point. I think it's around $1,700, and I ended up getting mine for, I think, $1,150 is what the bow itself was. But yeah, they've got it advertised at a 334 feet per second on their 33. I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but the other aluminum model, they've got their 30-inch axle and the 33. So because of my size, it usually just makes sense to shoot the longer axle to axle. So yeah, the 334 feet per second, watching the reviews that I did, most of them didn't come out to that. Most of them were about 10 to 12 feet per second slower, which is pretty standard amongst the industry. At my draw length, it might be closer to being accurate on that. I don't know. He had a chronograph set up. I just forgot to ask him if I could shoot through it. So I might do that when I go back up there to get some arrows or something. It's got a 6 3/8 inch brace height. It says 4.7 pounds. From the video reviews I watched, it was pretty close to that if you took off the shortstop stabilizer and the I forget what they call them, the rubber pieces that are on your limbs. And it's got their new cam on it, the HBX Pro cam. So compared to my Alpha Max, it's a giant cam. They're huge. Comes in 10-pound increments all the way from 30 up to 70 to 80 pounds. So a lot of options. They're 33. They've got a 26 to 29 inch draw length model and a 29.5 inch to 31. I sit at about it just depends, but usually like a 30 and 31 on the long side, so somewhere in that 30 to 31 inch range. So pretty long draw length. So like I said, that's another contributing factor for why I end up going with the longer bow. Couple other highlights I'll just mention on the bow that they're advertised. Their grip. They have a Picatinny rail for mounting your sight if you're shooting a fixed front sight. That new shortstop stabilizer, which is, it's in a lower location than your normal stabilizer would mount to. They still have the hole for the other one located above that. They advertise it, I believe, as being like the equivalent to a 6-inch stabilizer. I'd have to reread what they were saying about that, but basically, I guess because of its mounting location, that it was basically the same as that. I'll get into that here in a little bit. They got their new cam. Trying to think about what else it was. It might, yeah, it's not on here, but oh, here we go, overview. So yeah, a couple different things this year. The big thing I heard people talking about was the grip on it. Pretty much every video I watched, people said they loved the grip, which is, you know, huge when it comes to selecting a bow, because it's all about how it feels in your hand. So yeah, like I said, their inline system for their sight, their rest, optimized quiver mount location, a couple other things to mention. So yeah, I'll just get into my setup now, specifics on what I'm doing. So I'm shooting 30-inch draw length, 70 pounds. I guess I'll also mention I chose the buckskin pattern on it. They got a lot, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like 13 patterns that you can choose from. So a lot of options on it, whatever you like. But I just saw that buckskin and it just reminded me like the color of like a whitetail, so I thought that was really neat. So I just ended up going with that one. But yeah, 30-inch draw length, 70 pounds. My rest, I ended up going with the Hoyt integrated rest, and that's made by QAD. Initial thoughts on that: it's super quiet, unlike my old QAD. So I was kind of worried going into that, getting QAD again. I listened to a lot of Kifaru Cast and Aaron Snyder, and he talks about hating QAD. But I really just wanted to try and go with as much Hoyt stuff as I could. Just kind of get a better opinion over their setup on the bow. The one disadvantage I did see to it were like, it seemed like a little bit fragile, like the plastic on it's kind of like flexible and stuff, that if you were hunting like rough terrain or something like that, where you're putting a lot of miles in, like backcountry hunt or something like that, you might want to go with something that's a little more durable. It doesn't, I could be wrong, it could just be strong and flexible, but it doesn't seem to be the most durable if you're beating it around and stuff. My sight, I went with the Spot Hogg Fast Eddie XL, so it's got the long dovetail, you move it in and out. And then the sight on that is the new triple stack that they came out with this past year. I really wanted a 3-pin slider, and that was, especially being left-handed, that was something really tough to find. People having something in stock. So yeah, I ended up finding, like, I wanted my pro shop to get me something. He couldn't even come up with anything through his dealers, so I ended up just ordering that off Amazon. It's got a 19 thousandths pens. I forget what size the house. It's pretty big housing on it, which makes sense just to accommodate all those pens. But I want a slider sight just so I can. What I've realized with me practicing is the further out I can practice, the closer I get, those shots just feel like chip shots. So I don't really foresee myself shooting past like 45 yards with the kind of hunting I do, but you know, opportunity comes up where I get to go hunt elk or bear, or, you know, some different species where it makes more sense to shoot far. Then I've got the adjustability on it with the slider. Which I'll get into a couple other thoughts on that in a bit, just as far as the setup and stuff like that. But I'm just gonna keep going through the other components. So the one that everyone likes to talk about is arrows. So I was shooting 340 spine, gold tip. What are they? Hunter XTs. I've been shooting those for a long time. Even before I got into bow hunting, when I just messed around with bows, I was shooting those. I mean, arrows are kind of another thing where it's getting harder to go wrong these days, just because a lot of good arrow companies. But now I switched. I kind of asked him just like what he really recommends shooting out of it, and he told me you can't really go wrong with the Easton FMJs. So I'm shooting the 5mm. They're 340 spine, 11.3 grains per inch. I'm just shooting stock nocks and inserts right now. I think I'm probably gonna end up adding what are they called? Luminox to it come hunting season. But yeah, just the stock nock is 9 grains and the insert's 16 grains. And it's got, I believe it's pronounced boning, or it might be boning, 3 vein blazers, arrow length at 29 inches, and I've got 100 grain field pointer broadhead up front. So comes out to about 471.6 grains. We meant to weigh it when we were cutting them, but we got distracted doing something else, so didn't get to weigh them, but that's about what they should be. So heavier arrow setup, but at my draw length, I'm gonna get a little bit more speed anyways. So I should do pretty well with that setup. And like I said, he had the chronograph set up there, and I forgot to ask him if we could shoot through it. So probably make another one or mention it in another podcast, make an Instagram post, something like that, just about what speed I end up getting out of that setup. So yeah, I really like them. They're super consistent. They're a smaller diameter shaft than the gold tips I was shooting. I don't know if this says on it or not. Yeah, I don't see the diameter on it, but they're a little bit smaller. They're holding up well. You know, the gold tips I did end up, I don't know if it's just because of my rest not being the greatest on my old bow, but I'd lose a lot of fletchings and stuff like that. And these Eastons, I don't know, fletching's just holding them a lot better, so I'm sure it was the rest. But yeah, I haven't had any issues yet with that. The stabilizer, I'm running the Fuse 6.5 inch, and I believe it's 5 ounces that I just robbed it off my old bow. Once I got the bow, I just wanted to start playing around with the weight distribution on it. And so I mounted that where like a normal stabilizer would be, not in the shortstop location. So it's a little bit higher up. And I'm not running the shortstop on. I'll get into that in a second. Then also from Fuse, I'm running their detachable 5-arrow quiver. It's called the Carbon Alpha Light. But yeah, what I ended up finding with the stabilizer was that shortstop. I tried it in so many different configurations, just shooting it regularly. And of course, when I first got the bow, I just took the sight off my old bow since I couldn't get the one I wanted, and just started shooting like that. So that Fast Eddie XL the weight's out there quite a bit, and it's pretty heavy sight with the dovetail mount. So, you know, there wasn't even that much weight out there to start with. And that shortstop stabilizer, I could just feel the bow falling forward a lot. Which I heard in a lot of the reviews. It's, you know, a lot of guys said it wasn't terrible. For me, I didn't like it falling forward like that. I just like to keep the thing balanced and steady throughout the shot process. So yeah, I tried different combinations. I tried putting it up high, the shortstop in the higher location, and putting the long bar on the bottom. I tried, you know, just one or the other in different locations. And what I ended up finding to be best was taking the shortstop off and in the higher location mounting that 6.5 inch stabilizer off my old bow. And the thing balances great now. Even with I tried playing around again too once I got the Fast Eddie on, and it's the same thing. I just like having that there. I don't know if it's because I'm just used to shooting a bow with the stabilizer in that the weight distributed in that location. I don't know, but that's just what balanced best for me. And that's just gonna be dependent on the shooter, I think. But yeah, that was only or one of the only things I guess I had to say that I didn't like the bow coming from the factory was that shortstop stabilizer. and a lot of the videos I watched stuff too, people said like it really wasn't a stabilizer. I forget what they called it. But yeah, it just wasn't really doing a whole lot for me. So there was that, and then the only other thing I didn't like was the grip, which was kind of surprising because every review I watched and every video and whatever, people guys talking about this bow. Even people that hadn't even shot the bow yet were just talking about the grip and how it's supposed to be like, I don't know what the difference in it was between the bows they made before it, but everyone's talking about the grip. And for me, probably because I've only shot one other bow so far in my life, the grip on the Alpha Max was like way wider than this. This is a super narrow grip. Now the grip's comfortable and everything, the material and you know, the location, stuff like that, but it's just so much narrower that like I was like doing something weird where I'd end up, I don't know, I guess hyperextending my arm, I guess, just because I didn't have like the bear claw grip on it that I was used to. I ended up like slapping my arm with the string a few times, and I kind of had to like get used to holding it the right way. But yeah, now, I mean, it's something I just got to get used to, and I haven't had any issue with it in the last, I don't know, 3 days I've been shooting it. I've had the bow for like a week now. But yeah, so that's just another thing that I'm not gonna say like I should probably rephrase that. I said I don't like it, but it was not what I expected when I got the bow. But yeah, now I'm shooting great, and kind of jump into the Spot Hogg sight in process now. So they give you a procedure with your sight, and of course you got like your mounting instructions and then leveling your axes, second and third axis. It does not come with the first axis adjustment, which more people are kind of teetering away from this sight now because of that, or at least guys that are super serious. So if you're one of those guys, that's probably something to look into. But so they give you this calibration scale, and they basically tell you to sight in your top pin at 20, and then from there apply calibration scale. It's got a little mark on here for 20 yards. So your sight's got 3 pointers on it for 20, 30, 40, or however you set up your sight. But basically the top one's gonna be 20. So yeah, you'd line that up with the pointer once you get it sighted in at 20, and then from there, dial it out to 60, and wherever that is on this calibration scale tells you basically which, they give you I think 40 different sight tapes, and that's gonna like mathematically equate to which one you need, I guess. But what I found was, and I'm glad I played around with this before putting the sight tape on, is that one, I want the maximum adjustment out of it as possible. You know, I don't really know if I'm ever going to shoot 120 yards with it, but if it's possible with this thing, then, and I get good enough, I'm probably going to try it. Just because, like I said, it's going to make me that much better moving forward, or moving closer in distance. But if you do it their way, you lose adjustment on your bottom pin. So what I ended up doing was sighting in for my 40-yard pin. And that gave me, the other thing too is, it seems, I could be wrong on this, but the 40-yard pin's smaller than all the rest, obviously, because it's in the stack. I probably should explain that too. So triple stack, it's like a single pin sight, but then you've got 3 pins all in line versus like having horizontal pins. So the reason I went with that was just kind of open up my sight picture a little more. Yeah, anyways, it seems like the top 2 pins have more adjustment in them than the bottom pin does. So I didn't want to get the top one set and then run out of adjustment on my 40 to where it's set at like 38 yards or something like that. So I wanted to get that set at 40, so I knew I had enough adjustment in my pins and in the housing, to where I could move those other 2 where they needed to be, especially at like a further range. I'd rather have that set more, I don't know, more accurately than at close range, but they all ended up coming out to the right ranges anyway. So that's at least good. I haven't even put the sight tape on yet. I haven't shot it past like 45 yards. Just just because I'm making sure, I wanted to make sure everything was going to consistently shoot and work before I went messing with that, and then maybe having to change sight tapes or something like that. But I've got it pretty much dialed in. The other thing I really love about the sight is it's got, like, I'm pretty sure most of them are coming out with this now, but the micro adjustable like windage, which made it super easy for sighting in like left to right, because you didn't have to have like Allen wrenches or anything like that. So that's something I really like. And like today, another thing I guess too, why I just wanted to keep shooting and whatnot. Like today, I don't know what happened, but it was off right. Excuse me, it was off right a little bit. I don't know if it was just my form or something like that. I was doing weird before. Yeah, I got that just super simple. Just, I think I did like 3 clicks or something like that, and it was only at 40 yards too. 3 clicks and it was good to go. And I shot it at 30 and 20 again too, just to make sure, and it was still fine. So yeah, super simple on that. Very user-friendly sight. Getting to my release now. So I recently switched to a thumb button over like an index style release. And my reason for looking at that, I'd shot a back tension release before. Dylan let me borrow one, and that was not for me. People talk about, getting a surprise shot and whatnot, and that I've never had target panic. That gave me target panic, not knowing when it was going to go off. I'm mentally reflex steady enough that I can basically command the shot to when I know it's going to go off, and not flinch or panic, or I don't even know what goes on really with target panic, but not have any issues with getting it to go off properly. My big reason for switching though was my anchor. I just could not get a consistent anchor with the index release. I've heard like John Dudley talk about this before and stuff. Just like, you really don't need to be worrying about what your index fingers are doing in your shot, because you need to be stable, and like I guess it's just in the way your hand moves. The only thing you would really be able to move is your thumb, which makes sense, because like you look at, for the people watching, but you can imagine, put your face, the backside of your hand against your face, and you can feel how much more stable that is versus turning your hand, what would that be, palm down against your face, and you don't really have anywhere to get properly seated, and the finger that you have to command it with is pressed closer to your face. So it really doesn't make any sense. Whereas if you've got your palm out, I guess I'll call it, your thumb's free. Like, it's not touching against your anchor point at all. So it just makes a lot more sense. It made a lot more sense to me. And I'm shooting really well with that. I shoot it really, what I found is I curl my thumb over the thumb button, and then I've got it set at the highest setting that's on there. So that way I can just put my thumb on it and I just yank back in my shot, pull through with my scapula, and get that thing to go off in a consistent form, instead of punching a button out here floating by my face. So that release is just a cheap blackout 4-finger release that I picked up at Bass Pro. I'm sure archery gurus probably think it's terrible. I don't know. It's working great for me. I'm shooting so much more consistent now. Like I said, set on the highest tension. So I really have to, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not pressing the button. I'm holding over it, and the force of me pulling my elbow back, my shoulder, my back away from the bow is what's making it go off. So there's no movement in my hand at all. And I've slow-mode video and stuff, kind of like I used to do pitching a baseball, breaking down film. Basically, that's what I've done with archery now. And I'm just making sure, that's one of the things I'm most consistent on, is just making sure that I'm pulling back and not pressing a button. And haven't been having any issues with that. It's a lot, your front arm holding the bow out, you're gonna steady it on whatever you're aiming at. you're naturally just going to float into it. So it's not. I don't ever focus on aiming. And one of the things I've adopted recently that I got from John Dudley, but a lot of guys talk about it. I know, I believe his name's Joel Turno, Shot IQ guy, talks about the same thing. Just focus on shot sequencing. So I'm not thinking about anything really when I'm going through my shot process, because it's just 6 steps that I repeat over and over and over. There's no, if there's any interruption in it, then I let down or I stop the sequence and I start over again. And I feel like that's probably a lot of where people, everyone's talking about target panic these days. I feel like that's probably a lot of where that comes from, is thinking through parts of the process, whereas I've pretty much just taken the mind out of it. I was kind of the same way when I played baseball. Like my baseball swing, I'd walk up, touch the plate, swing the bat forward once. Here, I didn't do a toe touch or anything, I guess you call it. I didn't lift my leg, or leg lift, I guess they call it, leg kick. I don't know what they call it anymore. But I just turn my heel up and swing straight on. You see guys in there, they get in there, they're swinging the bat back and forth, and they've got swinging the bat up and down once they've got it up, and just doing all this crazy stuff. I've always been about simplifying processes, so this has been working great for me. So my 6 steps are stance. So I've talked about it before, but shooting archery like the Vitruvian Man, so just very linear motions and balanced form is what you're looking for there, which is going to change if you're shooting on hills and stuff like that. But yeah, so just nice even stance, and then I've got my bow down, the arrow nocked, and I just check grip. So yeah, grip feels right, and then loose front shoulder, and then I'm just bringing that shoulder up 90 degrees and pointing at my target, draw back, anchor, get a solid anchor, line up my peep, level the bubble, and then putting the pin on it. But that's not a part of the shot sequence. The pin just naturally gets there as you go through these other things. So yeah, it's stance, grip, shoulder, anchor, and then peep, pull, and release. So once I get the peep there, the peep's pretty much put me on the target. I'm not even thinking about that. I'm thinking about getting to the release. The mate, I would say maybe that's why I'm so focused on the release, because it's like the thing I'm trying to get to. So I just get all my other stuff where I know it needs to be, and I'm just wanting to pull through that shot, I guess. So yeah, shot sequencing's been great for me. I'd definitely try it out if you've never tried it. Maybe it's, I don't know, because I know some people got to do it like, there's guys that swing a baseball bat around all around once they're in the box, and they're some of the best hitters there are. So maybe like some kind of other distraction is better for you. I don't know, but that's just what works for me. But I think the only other thing I have to talk about is broadheads. So I've always shot fixed blade broadheads, and my thought process on that was just like, you always hear about mechanicals like not deploying, or not getting an exit hole, just what if you hit the shoulder or anything like that. Well, I started listening to this podcast that Aaron Snyder was doing, and he started talking about Sever broadheads. I guess I'll go ahead and mention the fixed blades I was shooting. So that's the G5 Montec there, and then that's an older Muzzy Trokar. Both super good broadheads. But I heard Aaron Snyder talking about like hitting an animal forward. If you hit an animal on the shoulder, it doesn't really matter most of the time what broadhead you have. Probably not going to be a vital or fatal hit anyways. So let's think in the theory of you miss far back. You want the widest, most damaging cut possible. And even with the fixed blade, an exit hole is not guaranteed, so you might as well just make sure that entry hole does as much damage as possible. I started thinking, like, man, there's a lot of logic in that. So he was talking about he's been shooting Sever broadheads, and he recommends them over any other broadhead that he's ever shot. So I started looking into them, and they've just got a super neat design. The blades in their, I guess we'll call it their pre-launch, pre-shot position, are completely closed. So they're, how do I explain it? I guess they're like a forward-facing V or something like that. And then they have an O-ring on them. As soon as they make the impact, there's two little ears on it, and then that flips the blades out. But the blades are on like a swivel system. So let's say you hit a rib or something on one, the normal mechanical you've heard of before will just completely change trajectory, because once the blades deploy, it's like a fixed broadhead basically. But this one just stays fluid, we'll call it, I guess. And one blade will close, and the other one can just stay right on course. And then as soon as it makes it past that bone, the other one can open right back up. So I was like, man, this is a super neat design. It's a 2-inch cut. Yeah, and so I thought that was really neat. They got this system too with the set screw that once the blades are like forward, you can lock it in and shoot it just like field point, and you know it's not damaging your target, damaging the broadhead or anything like that. So super cool setup. So I ended up ordering, I think they had a deal, they got me on a deal. I needed 5 of them for my quiver. Well, if you bought, I think you bought 4, it was free shipping. And then if you ordered 7, like the 6th one was free basically. So I was like, I need 5, might as well just get the extra one, and I get one for free because I hope to be using them. So yeah, that super neat design by Sever. My big thing was, I told this too when I was like selecting my arrows and all that stuff. He's like, because he asked me, he's like, what do you want? And I said, accuracy. Like, I don't care about numbers or speed or arrow weight, like the people obsess. I don't care. I just want to be accurate and ethical and lethal in the field. Like, I'm not a target archer or anything like that, but I just want to be the best bow hunter I possibly can be. So yeah, that was kind of my theory on going to this mechanical too, is since it closes up like a field point, it's going to be way more accurate because it's going to shoot just like, you know, how I'm practicing with my field points. Whereas a fixed head, I mean, depending on what you're running up there, some of them can be a lot harder to tune, and they'll shoot completely different than your target points. So then you're basically having to shoot 2 different setups all year long, one for hunting and one for just practicing during the summer or whatever. So I didn't want to do that. So yeah, they should be in this week. I'll end up doing a review on them. And yeah, I'm pretty optimistic on them. They seem, you know, the engineering on them's way ahead of pretty much all the other broadheads on the market. I never thought I'd switch to mechanical, but the more I got thinking about it, it just made the most sense. Especially if I am wanting to shoot out further distances eventually and stuff like that too. You know, distance magnifies mistakes and errors, so I'd rather just be as consistent as possible. So yeah, my final thoughts, you know, I love the bow. It's the only new bow I've ever had, so I mean that kind of makes sense. But yeah, it's easy to pull back. I guess their cam does have 80 and 85% let-off adjustment on it too. I'm on 80. I think I'm on 85%. So yeah, it pulls, draw cycle super smooth, let off super easy. It's balanced great with that. Now I got that stabilizer set up, dialed in. Super quiet. One of the, you know, I think the Mathews, because I heard some people in the shop firing that last year. That thing might be a little bit quieter, but this Hoyt's like number 2 right there, just right behind it. Not anything remotely close to what bows used to be. I remember my dad's old 80-pound Bear with, I don't even know, 1,000 grain giant freaking arrow on it. That thing was super loud. So yeah, they've definitely come a long way in that technology. But yeah, I'm super happy with it. Like I said, I'm gonna start shooting out further distances and stuff. Maybe I can give a little more insight once I've been doing that. But yeah, hunting season's right around the corner. We've been working hard, got everything planted. Beans didn't take off too well for some reason. We used a year-old bag of beans. I don't know if that's what did it. So Dad just replanted that this past week. Buckwheat, probably should have used some fertilizer on it. It didn't reach its full potential. But you know, the deer are still out there eating on it. So getting them in there. Posted the video last week, and then my trail camera update. Got a couple good bucks in there. They're already, you know, got 8+ points. So really excited to see what we're gonna have this year. And they're coming right to my Wendigo mineral site. So I think it's like 6 to 8 yards from my stand. So hope I can connect on something. The new Hoyt sent us ever broadhead through them, and kind of put these theories in play. So that's all I got for this one. Probably mumbled and stumbled my way through it since I haven't done one in a while. Hopefully it brought some kind of value to you. Thanks for listening.